Hey everyone, and thank you for joining us for the live book launch for the paperback version of Tim Lebbon's fantastic novel, Eden. Huge thank you to Sadie Hartman, best better known as Mother Horror, for helping us out with this. She's done all the technical side of this, something which I was really dreading doing. But yeah, we're here to celebrate the launch of Tim's book. Utterly fantastic book. If you haven't read it, seriously, bookshops are open now in the UK. Get down there tomorrow, get a copy. Trust me, you'll love it. I first came across Tim, it must be about 1997, with the release of his first novel, Mesmer. And
wow, yeah.
If you make comments, you have a chance to win an actual paperback version of the original copy of it. And in that's what, 23 years now? 23 years, must be pushing close to 40 books Tim's written, from taking in Hellboy, Aliens, 30 Days of Nights, adaptations, working with the fantastic Christopher Golden on books like Map of Moments, an amazing fantasy trilogy. Was it pronounced Norila?
Norila, yeah.
Norila, yeah. The latest Relics trilogy. Obviously, we can't talk about Tim without talking about the Silence. I mean, I think my two favourite books of his were The Thief of Broken Toys. It's a book that even now, reading it many years after I first read it, it still hits me right in the stomach with the emotional punch. It's a fantastically powerful novella. And White, which is the only book I've ever had stolen. I fell asleep after finishing reading it on the bus. It was hanging outside the bag, and when I woke up, it was gone. Nowhere about. So someone obviously thought, I like the look of that book, I'm taking it. So I hope they became a lifelong fan. So yeah, well, that's Tim Lebbon, a fantastic author and a fantastic guy. So
Jim.
Right. So where do we start? Now, one of your first mass market paperbacks was the Nature of Balance. Or was it Nature of Balance? Yes. And that was quite a sort of eco-horror as well. Was there any sort of tying in thought process for Eden now, so the 20-year anniversary of your first mass market paper book launch with a big 5 company?
There really wasn't, to be honest. It's really an odd thing. Once I'd written Eden and had it published, a couple of people said, "Oh, you're repeating." You're not repeating, but you're still digging into ground you excavated before with the Map of Moments and other nature horror stuff. And it only then occurred to me that they're right, and I think it's a subconscious passion of mine. The nature horror thing, and it didn't cross my mind until I finished writing Eden that it was ploughing the same ground, as it were, as the Nature of Balance and other stuff I've written. Even you mentioned the Norila trilogy, Dusk and Dawn books. They were very much driven by fantasy flora and fauna that I imagined in those worlds. And in a way, Dusk and Dawn were climate change, were fantasy climate change books, I guess. So it's probably more at the fore now than it ever was, but there's definitely echoes of Nature of Balance in Eden. Yeah. Strange.
So I assume, with the timescale of writing a novel, you'd started Eden before the sort of recent rise in people's public awareness of the problems with the environment.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been coming to the fore for like 2 or 3 years, really. But I think something that really drove it for me was my daughter doing a geography degree. My daughter's really passionate about the environment, and she's done lots of projects on it. And I read her essays. She's finished a degree now in lockdown. I used to read her essays just to sort of tweak the English on it if it needed tweaking. So I got really quite interested in, or more interested in the environment because of Ellie doing a geography degree. Even planning it, I knew what I was going to talk about. I knew that climate change, it's still happening now, folks. People that seem to have forgotten about it, but it's still out there. So it wasn't really before, it was at the fall of the public consciousness, I don't think. But I sort of felt it was about time to really dig into that in the nature horror that I write.
For those who haven't read the book, the section of the world that have been zoned off in classes virgin zones where nobody's allowed in or out. It's basically completely sealed off from the world at large. Do you think that could actually work in real life?
That's an interesting question, because when I came up with the idea, I thought, fuck me, this is original. Nobody's thought of this before. And then when I was on holiday in Canada last year, I was reading a National Geographic, and it talked about, it didn't call them a virgin zone, but it talked about an area of nature given back to the wild in Russia 100 years ago. And it was called Zaprovnik, I think it was called. And it was virtually a Russian virgin zone. So the Russians obviously implanted the idea subconsciously into my consciousness to come up with Eden. But I think it could work, and it does really to some extent. You know, we have national parks here in the States and all over the world, and they're not driven to the extent of the virgin zones. They're, in a way, national parks are for us, whereas the virgin zones are for nature. So I think, yeah, I really think they could work. And I also researched, as well as getting into the whole climate change thing, I researched areas. I read a great book by Alan Weisman called The World Without Us. And it postulated what would happen to the world if humanity just suddenly disappeared, like overnight. And I'll never forget the chapter on New York and Manhattan, which apparently is all the subways are kept free of water by massive pumps. So if humanity disappeared, eventually the electric would fail, pumps would fail, and Manhattan would flood. And that was a fascinating book. But I also looked at the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea, which is an area of land where people don't go, and that nature's taken over, and also Pripyat and Chernobyl, which now is a bit more settled. People live there now, but animals have survived there and thrived in many ways in strange forms, you know. So yeah, so I think it could work, and I think it would work, but I'm not sure the political will to do it.
I don't think there's nobody we can trust to run it, is there?
No.
I'm not sure who'd run it. I mean, certainly not the people we've got in power, both sides of the Atlantic at the moment, I don't think. I think we should hand it over to Canada and New Zealand.
Yeah.
Let those guys do it.
We do actually have some questions if you want to go ahead and get started with those, if you guys are ready.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, because I think we could rap about some of these for a while. Here is one from Blue.
Hey, Blue.
Hi, Tim. He says, I loved your Hellboy novels. Any other comics or horror franchise characters you would like to write about?
Hey, Blue. Hope you're well. I've sort of done the stuff that I've always wanted to with the tie-in work. Like Hellboy was a great project, but also the Alien and Predator. Alien was always a real passion and a labor of love, that first Alien novel. And then I did 3 more with Predator tie-in. It's crossed my mind that I really love Preacher, but I'm not sure that's something that could lend itself to side stories as much as Hellboy. So I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but that's not to say that one day somebody might not come knocking at the door with the project and I say, oh, hell yeah, that's good. I have got a Firefly novel out in October. I think it's still due out in October from Titan.
I actually think your Eden book would make a good graphic novel or a comic.
It would make a great TV series.
Yeah, it would. Hint, hint, any producers?
Well, yeah, I mean, things might be ticking over in that regard, but I can't say anything yet. But yeah, it would be that would be a fantastic graphic novel. I've never done what I would like to do, as opposed to writing prose based on graphic novels and franchise characters is to write a graphic novel. Never done one. And I've always toyed with the idea, but I've never really got round to it. I'm sure, if I came up with a story, I could pitch it to somebody and have a go. And that's definitely on my bucket list, to do a graphic novel one day. Start writing some notes. I've had a couple of ideas actually, but maybe. Yeah. How did I get into writing? Hey, Grognog. Writing tie-ins, how lucrative is doing so? Money or exposure? So I'm a working writer. I'm a mid-list writer. Tie-in projects are always good fun. I always put my all into them, but they are paydays as well. That's not to say they're massive paydays. They tend to be work you have to do quite quickly, especially novelizations. You sent a screenplay maybe 4 months before the book's due to be published, and your editor says, right, you've got 6 weeks to write this. So they're quick work for fairly decent money sometimes. The best, I wrote a Star Wars novel, and that was good pay. The other tie-in stuff it sort of pays for itself, if you know what I mean. Pays for the time it takes to write the novel, but also the exposure I think is really good. So many people have come across my work through tie-in books, and then small proportion of them slip over to my own writing, and that's what I want to happen, So the Star Wars novel got me on New York Times bestseller list, and I think 30 Days a Night book did as well, and that's not because I wrote them; it's because of what they were. But it's that's exposure you can't buy, That's really good exposure.
How does the tie-in work? Are you approached, or do you just go ahead and write it and then submit it, or?
Yeah, you're approached. So a publisher, Titan, for instance, who I've done a lot for, they buy the rights. So the Alien and Predator tie-ins I've done for Titan, they bought the rights from Fox. They negotiate with Fox to do tie-in projects. So they buy the rights from Fox, and then they hire people to write the licensed material. And it's always, I'm lucky enough that I've always been approached. I think some writers approach publishers with ideas, and then if it's a great idea, the publisher may look into what the rights situation is. I don't get involved in that behind the scenes stuff. That's all business. Don't like business. I just want to write books.
Yeah, right.
I think it was Tim Wagner last week had a fantastic Twitter thread on the whole tie-in process, and it was fascinating to read it. It's not as simple as you would think, and the amount of input, the number of times I have to go back to the studio and come back, and how everyone has to be verified and signed off. I'm sure it was Tim Wagner. If you're on Twitter, search out Tim. And
yeah, Tim's a great guy. He's done
the end of last week.
Yeah, Tim's done quite a few tie-in projects. He's a good guy, Tim. Every project's different, every tie-in project. So today, my Firefly novel was signed off by Fox, I think. Yeah. I did quite a few edits on that novel, whereas previous novels, like the Alien and Predator stuff I did, was a sort of a quicker edit process. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because certainly the Alien Predator novels I did weren't based on established characters. It was all my characters, my stories, my planets to blow up. Whereas Firefly is based on really, well-loved characters, so I had to get everything perfect. So yeah, that was a bit more of a in-depth editorial process, but all good fun,
Yeah, that sounds a little challenging though, because some of those franchises have like really serious hardcore fans that probably have a lot of opinions about how those go.
They really do, and I think out of the stuff I've done, I've not had much communication from Firefly fans yet. But out of all the stuff I've done, as I understand it, the Firefly fans are the ones that want you to get it most right. When it was announced I was doing a Star Wars novel, I had an email from somebody, and it said something like, "Oh, I hear you're doing a Star Wars novel. Are you going to have a Z1245 droid?" I said, "What the fuck is that? I don't even know what you're on about." No. But yeah, it's all, the fandom is good fun.
That's
And
awesome.
also the alien predator stuff. You know, I sometimes make the mistake of going on message boards and seeing what people are saying about the books I've written. And sometimes it's good.
Yeah, the message boards, yeah. Bad news. Right.
Yeah. Hey, Jim, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, here's a question. How aware were you of writing in a specific eco-horror sci-fi subgenre, and did you do any background reading of author books of the same type?
Not really aware at all. The horror eco sci-fi is a sub genre that Titan applied to the book, and I think it's fine. I know, what do they call it? Eco horror thriller. I think getting the thriller word in there is probably good marketing. Honestly, I just came up with a story that I wanted to write, and it was I was zooming with Sarah Pinborough the other night, and she said, "You love chase stories, don't you?" And I realized, oh, actually, yeah, I do. All my characters are always either chasing something or being chased, and it's because I'm into the running and that side of things. So Eden was definitely driven by my love of endurance sport. So I combined that with the climate change idea, and it didn't cross my mind that I was writing something that is probably a bit more sci-fi than usual, or a bit more eco-driven than usual. It was just, I just came up with what I thought was a good idea and ran with it. I didn't read, I read non-fiction books, like I said, the Jim Wiseman book, The World Without Us, terrific read. And also read a book by Gaia Vince, I think her name is. I can't remember what the book's called. Sorry, that's terrible. But she spent a year or two traveling around the world looking at how humans have affected the landscape and the flora and fauna. And that was it was a good read, but it was also somewhat depressing as well. You know, you research into climate change and you can't help but be a bit depressed about it. But I think there's an upbeat side to Eden. You know, it is about humans sometimes being killed horribly, but the upbeat side of it is that nature's taken control, and that's sort of what we want in a way, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we're just a blip on the sort of, the timeline of this planet. We're not going to be here for much longer. As a species, we're too self-destructive in everything that we do. I mean, we can't even live together as a species, let alone look after the planet that we're living on. So yeah, we don't have much time left on here, I don't think.
Yeah, we can't even talk on Twitter without getting into a flame about anything lately.
And we've just been horrible stewards of the planet. I mean, just our current president has undone like 60 different environmental protection policies since he's been in office for 3.5, almost 4 years. So I mean, we're just going backwards at this point as well.
Yeah, I think so. And there's lots of talk about we're destroying the planet, and we're really not. We're destroying humanity. The planet's going to be absolutely fine. It's changed, and there's species extinction and climate change, but Earth will be absolutely fine once we're gone. That's why this book was fascinating, The World Without Us. And it talks about the immediate effect of humanity disappearing, and then jumps into the future. 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years. What's left of humanity in 1,000,000 years? Possibly, I don't know, some stone statues, if people haven't pulled them all down. Or, basement buildings. I don't know. Will anything be left at all? Some landing modules on the moon. Footprints on the moon. Maybe that's going to be the last thing left of humanity. God, this is depressing. And yet,
I mean, like even though in the pandemic too, we've seen just some of the effects of the Earth, like kind of reforming itself while we've been stuck in our houses. It doesn't take long at all.
It's amazing how quick it happens. I mean, first of all, the air quality just became so much better around cities and suburban areas. I live in a rural area, and as soon as traffic stopped flowing, the air quality got improved so quickly. My daughter and I went for a walk 10 days ago down by the local river, And we saw, on one walk, we saw a fox, a kingfisher, an otter, buzzards. I've never seen an otter before in my life. I've seen a fox in the wild, but I'd go running on hills and up mountains and stuff. We saw it all in 1 2-hour walk.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure it's because just things are quieting down a little bit and wildlife is just a bit more daring. And it's a lovely side of it.
Yeah, it's like right round us. I mean, I'm like you. It's a small town, sort of right in the countryside, and there's a big farm estate where you can spend the whole day walking there. It's massive. It goes right up into the Pentlands, and I've been walking our dog there for 2.5 years now. And when you get into the pheasant season, you come across the odd one or two. Now there's hundreds of them, and it's because they're not getting run over on the roads. And it's such a simple, small little thing that now suddenly I lose my dog for an hour a day because she's off after a pheasant.
Yeah, getting your Sunday roast for you.
She never brings them. She never catches them. She's too.
I know she's right.
She tries.
It's a nice thing. Yeah. Hey Rob. Rob Shepherd asks, what's been my favourite sci-fi horror project to have worked on to date? It's got to be Alien. If you're talking about tie-in stuff, it's got to be Alien, because that was a total labour of love. Massive Alien fan. Alien and Aliens, two of my favourite films. And then there's a sort of law of diminishing returns. What?
Nope.
Alien 3 is all right, but what do you disagree with? Which one do you like?
I think it goes Alien, Alien 3, Aliens, and then nothing else exists.
Yeah, I can sort of.
Oh, you didn't like the Prometheus?
Oh God, no.
I liked it.
6 times it took me before I could actually finish that. I would watch it, stop it, start again, watch it. No.
Okay, I'll just pretend like I didn't like it.
I watched that film in the cinema with such high hopes, and it's just a bit of a mess. I can appreciate it for looking lovely, and if it weren't for the alien birth scene at the end and the apparent link to the alien universe, it's an okay sci-fi horror film. But then anyway, yeah. So my favorite one is Alien, definitely. I pitched an Alien novel like 10 or 12 years ago to Dark Horse when the editor Rob Simpson was doing. I think he did 1 or 2 Alien novels there, and I pitched one to him, and then the line stopped. So I never thought I'd do one, and it's down to Chris Golden that I ended up doing an Alien novel with Titan, because Chris pitched me and him and Jim to do a trilogy of Alien novels to Steve Saffel, our editor there. And then, so we did it. It was great. That was such good fun. Yeah. Star Wars also, to be fair, I remember my agent phoning me and we talked a bit of business. He said, oh yeah, and Tim, do you want to do Star Wars? So it took me 3.5 seconds to say, yes, definitely. That was good fun.
That would be fun. That would be fun.
Yeah.
How did you actually sort of meet and connect with Chris Golden?
So that was through Hellboy. So Chris was editing an Hellboy short story collection. We knew of each other, but we didn't know each other. And that's virtually how he emailed me. He said, hey Tim, Chris Golden here. We've passed in corridors of conventions. We've never met. I want you to write a Hellboy story for me, for my anthology. And I mean, he knows this now. He didn't know it at the time. I'd never even read Hellboy. Didn't really know much about what Hellboy was. So I sort of said to him, I can't do that because I've never read Hellboy. And he emailed me back and he said, no, you are doing it. You are writing me a Hellboy story. So he bullied me into doing it. And from that, I wrote a novel for a series he was doing. He was editing a Hellboy novel series for Simon & Schuster at the time. And we met in New York. Very romantic it was, actually. It was at StokerCon on the 22nd floor of the hotel on a starry night on the balcony. We met, and the rest is history. Yes, it was a beautiful moment.
That was very romantic.
It was. He's a good guy. Yeah, he's one of my best friends now, Golden. So Felicity sorry?
I don't think he'll mind me saying this. Sorry, Chris. What did he say? He's one of the best people he knows, but you're so fit he could murder you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not after lockdown. I am riding my bike and running, but I've let myself go a little bit, I've got to say. All my racing, I trained for races all through the year, triathlons, they're all off. There's nothing on this year. It's all a bit, what shall I do? So I tried to set myself a challenge this month, 400 miles on the bike this month, and I'm a little bit behind at the moment, but I'll get there. But yeah, he's a good guy. Right, we should get back to these. So Felicity and I go to Disney, say, what are you working on now? What can we expect from you and when? Looking forward to the After Sundown anthology. Yeah, so that's a new anthology edited by my mate Mark Morris for Flame Tree, which is out sometime. Not quite sure when that's out, later this year. So I'm working on now a novel called Fall that I've written by hand, which I've finished in 7 notebooks, and here's the first one I've just started typing up. It's going to take forever. I wish I'd been typing up as I was going along. So Fall is sort of another eco horror thriller, to be honest, but it's not connected to Eden, and it's got sort of a similar background and theme, but it's more of a thriller, more of a straight thriller in some ways. I haven't sold that book yet, to be honest, so I've written that on spec, and I'm getting it into the computer now, and then the time will come to make it good and do some edits on it and revise it. So what else? I did promise a bit of semi-exclusive news here, but I can't be too overt about what I announced. But I can say one of my novels is in development for TV in the States at the moment, but I can't. It's because it's not announced. I can't really say what's happening and what it is. So I'll tell you both privately afterwards.
Juicy news right here.
Which is not really news because I can't. Yeah, I should speak go and see if I can announce it. Actually, I might do that.
Well, I think book nerds are pretty used to that. I mean, we get a lot of vague tweeting about like, okay, something really exciting's happening, but I can't tell you what. So
I know, and that's awful, isn't it? Doesn't it make you sick? So I've just done that live. I'm vague book live.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks a lot, Tim Lebbon.
Yeah, that's all right. Sorry. Yeah, shoot me later. I'll tell you both privately later. There you go.
Okay.
Hey, Sean. How you doing? So before I went full-time writing, how did I manage the work-life writing balance? Oh, God, yeah. I'm not quite sure how that worked. So before I've been full-time for 14 years now, and then before that I was part-time for 3 or 4 years. And I was probably writing as much as when I was working full-time as I am now, which is a bit odd. Maybe not quite as much. But I think from memory, I was writing in the morning before work. I was writing during lunchtimes in work and the evenings, and all my annual leave from work was taken to write. And I worked for local authority, so I wrote in work basically as well. Hope my boss isn't here. No, he's not there. So the work-life balance was really writing was a priority, and work just sort of paid the bills at the time, to be honest. Any insights for new writers on how to handle the workload? I mean, I think a lot of that depends on what your job is, to be honest. I was lucky enough that I had a very flexible job. I worked flexi time. My boss, is a good mate of mine. He knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I do remember sticking my head around the door 14 years and 3 months ago and smiling at him, and he said, "You're going, aren't you?" I said, "Yes." That was a good last month. I was unbearable. I had a big calendar on the wall and I was crossing off every day. I was probably a complete bastard for that month in work, to be honest, but he knew what I wanted. So it's all good. Yeah, depends which job. Hey, Tim. Tim, love everyone. Tim is a good guy who Tim helps me look up my website and posts stuff for there for me. So welcome, Tim. I've written horror, fantasy, and sci-fi. Any other genres you would like to give a try? Don't forget thrillers, historical naval romance. I think that's my next novel.
Historical romance?
Historical naval romance. No, that was a joke. I'll probably never write. Horror, fantasy, and sci-fi, yeah, and thrillers, and sort of combinations of those as well. I tend not to like with Eden, I didn't think to myself, right, I'm writing a horror novel now. I came up with a story that I liked that sort of fits into the stuff I'm known for, I guess.
See, I was wondering, is there a single version of Eden, or is there a version where you sort of, you veer off more in towards the horror section or sci-fi, or was it just straight, this is what I'm writing and that's it, if you know what I mean?
I think I'm drawn to horror. I mean, you read most of what I've written, Jim, and I don't think there's much that I've written. Even the thrillers, there's 2 straight thrillers I've written, The Hunt and The Family Man, and they're both really fucking dark and grim. You know, they're sort of they're the only 2 non-fantastical, non-supernatural stuff I've written, but they're both still really dark and grim. So I'm drawn to horror. So what I come up with a story that I want to write, and I write it, and it inevitably ends up as being horror tainted one way or another. The only sort of non-fantastical genre I think I could write in is I'm quite fascinated by World War II, because my grandfather was in it, my father, who died when I was very young, and it was much older than my mum, he was in it. So possibly I'd write about World War II, I think, possibly, but not sure I'll ever get around to doing it. And non-fiction wise, I did start writing a book years ago called The Run, Walk, Crawl, about just because I got fit in my 40s. As I got into my 40s, I was overweight and unfit, and so I started writing the book just about my sort of stupid adventures trying to get fit. That never sort of got anywhere, but I still occasionally toy with the idea of finishing that, so maybe publishing it myself. It was called Run, Walk, Crawl.
I have an awesome comment from Blue that I think you both should see.
Okay, go on, Blue.
How about that?
Yeah,
Boom.
Looks like someone's getting blocked on Twitter after they come off here. I'm joking, Blue. Joking.
I don't hate them. I don't hate them. Yeah, Felicity, yeah, you love Pranit. Yeah, like I said, I didn't hate them. But the trouble is, I compare them. I compare Prometheus to Alien and Aliens. And even Alien 3, I got a soft spot. Even Alien, what was the 4th one? Resurrection. That's got its moments. The silly ending, but it's got its moments. But you can't help going to see something that he's making as an Alien film, Ridley Scott, and saying this is another film in the Alien franchise, and I just found both of them quite disappointing. Covenant, because it was a rehash. I don't know. I think sometimes leave it alone and move on to something else, I think.
Yeah,
yes.
I agree.
Yeah. I don't think there's any film, certainly a horror film, that's been made that requires more than 2 sequels. I think once you've told 2 other stories, you've told the story. It's like, we're talking about another Hellraiser. Just let it die, please.
Yeah.
Because the more you see the monster, the more the monster loses its impact. Especially, the Jason films, it's a guy with a knife. How many times can you be scared by a guy with a knife? No.
Alien, though, I'm such a big fan, and Aliens, for me, is the best sequel ever made to any film. Aliens, because it's probably my favorite film of all time, Aliens. And I can, it's one of those movies where you surf across the channels late at night, and it's a third of the way through, and I just have to finish watching it. I can't turn it off. And a lot of that is nostalgia as well. A lot of that love is nostalgia. And that's why new films in the franchise are never going to work for me as much as the older films, because it can be the best film ever made, but it still won't hold up. Anyway, yeah, let's go for another question. Wayne, hey Wayne, how you doing? Short story collection. Yeah, I've got enough short stories for another collection easily. And yes, I'd like to do another short story collection. It's just not something that I've sort of actively shopped around yet. Crossed my mind to do it myself, but only crossed my mind. I don't think I've got the focus and the dedication to do that. So we'll see. Hey Matt, yeah, do I handwrite my books? So yes, as I said earlier, Fall, the new novel I've just finished, is the first novel I've handwritten, and it's novel number, I think, 45. If Tim Love's still on there, he'll tell us if I'm accurate with 45 or 46. And why I did it, partly down to Rio Ewers, my splendid Canadian friend who handwrites everything. And he and I, he's a good buddy and we talk about it a lot. And he was talking to me about how the process is different and how the sort of flow of ideas is different when you're handwriting. And I did find that, although now I'm wishing that I did what Rio does, which is handwrite during the day and then type up what you've written in the evening. Because I handwrote the whole novel without typing any of it up. So I know I've got a 100,000-word novel that I've got to, transcribe. But that's okay. That's part of the editing process. And that's why I made that choice. I did handwrite a novella a while back called Rhyme, which was Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner in Space, which I thought was a pretty cool novella. And that was because I could go and sit in coffee shops and do it. So I started handwriting Fall in January, and I did go to coffee shops and pubs. And then something happened in the world, and I haven't been out in 12 weeks. So so I handwrote the whole thing at home, which wasn't really the intention at all. But to see what happens next and see if I can go back to my beloved coffee shops. I miss coffee shops more than pubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do miss going to coffee shops. I mean, just being at home all the time, when I have like a 14-year-old at home and different things going on in the house, it's really nice to just go off somewhere else, and just
it's really nice, yeah.
Yeah, just be in a different environment. Here's a question from Gina.
Hi, Gina. Plot or characters? Ooh. My favourite pie. Right. Plot or characters first? Probably story idea first, to be honest. Just occasionally a character will pop up that I think, oh, that's a cool character. I can build a story around him or her. But probably a story idea first. So it's not necessarily plot first, but it's like kernel of the idea first. And then plot and characters sort of coalesce at the same time usually. I tend not to plan my stuff in great detail. So Eden, for instance, I did have a notebook and a sort of short proposal I wrote, more to show my agent than anything else. And once I sort of agreed with Howard, my agent, I was going to write Eden, I don't think I looked at the proposal once. And that happens quite a bit. Even if I sell a book to a publisher on a proposal, they'll agree and contract me to write a novel sometimes. And then I put it in a drawer and don't look at it sometimes. The other part of that question, my favorite pie. So this is a difference between the States and the UK. So pie in America, is that cake in Britain? I'm not quite sure. Or is it like apple pie or cherry pie? I like cherry pie. My favorite cake though is probably a coffee and walnut cake. Oh, Jim, coffee and walnut.
Whoa.
I'm allergic to walnuts.
Oh, are you?
Coffee shop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So coffee and walnut cake, which combines two of my loves, which is cake and coffee. It's fantastic. That's why my favorite drink is an espresso martini, because it also combines booze and coffee. Anything with coffee is just a bonus for me, I think. Great.
Which espresso and alcohol, you put those together, it's kind of a downer and an upper at the same time. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Oh, it's great. A pure espresso martini is just divine.
Yeah, I've never had that.
If you ever make it over here,
no.
Sadie, I'll introduce you to a much better mix for an alcohol, an upper and a downer when it comes to alcohol and caffeine.
Okay, you can make
that sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. It used to be a staple at FCON if I could smuggle the bottles in, but yeah, it's it gets you going. Put it that way.
It does. Yeah. Too many espresso martinis of an evening, and you don't sleep very well. That's the trouble. So we've got another question here. So, Malcolm Wimberg. So I recently read The Silence and so enjoyed reading about a deaf character that I relate to. Oh, thanks for that. The story was great too. Thank you. What helped you to write such an accurately depicted disability? Well, honestly, I when I came up with the idea of The Silence, I thought the idea of having one of my main characters as a point of view character who's also deaf was just a massive challenge for me. And I sometimes quite like challenging myself, sometimes too much. And several times writing it, I did think I'd bitten off more than I could chew, really, because obviously I'm not deaf, so I can't. It's difficult to imagine what it's like to not be able to hear anything. So I did a fair amount of research into how a deaf person could communicate and see the world, and I researched sign language and came to learn that there's dialects and sometimes. So Ali and her brother Jude in the book have some of their own private sign language, but I thought was quite cool. But I was a bit kind on myself by having Ali. She wasn't deaf from birth. She'd been deafness was the result of an injury that she got in an accident, so she could talk. She understood. She'd had 7 or 8 years as a hearing person, so I probably was kinder to myself then. But it was just research, really, trying to put myself in a place, and it was really nice. So that my editor at Titan, Miranda, who edited the book for me, I think she was deaf for the first 3 or 4 years of her life, so it was really good that she helped me tweak certain things here and there to make it more realistic. So that all sort of worked out really well. You got any other questions?
I think that was our last question.
There's one from Ian Dodds, I noticed. Any plans for another horror novella series, like Naming the Parts?
I see that.
Yeah, so I love novellas, and I'd like to write more. I'm not sure I'd write another series. There is a novella series I started writing years ago called the Assassin series. So it's Dead Man's Hand, Pieces of Hate, and Whisper of Southern Lights. I'd like to continue that at some point. And I really should, because I left it with such a cliffhanger ending in the Whisper of Southern Lights. It's just awful. So I should do that at some point. Yeah, I'd like to. I love writing novellas, really, really. And it was very kind of you, Jim, earlier to say about Sleep of Broken Toys. And I think some of the novellas I've written are what I'm known for quite a lot more necessarily, more sometimes than the novels. I mean, The Silence is something that people know about now because of the movie, obviously. But the amount of time I've gone to a convention and had somebody come up to me and say, "Oh my God, you wrote White." I said, "Yeah, thanks for that. That was 23 years ago. But have you read anything since?" You know. But it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to have something like White that's been reprinted in quite a few places, and it's still ticking over as a possible movie. I mean, that's certainly in the background, but yeah. And I think sometimes with novellas, you can really let yourself go. Like Sleep of Broken Toys was a really bizarre idea that wouldn't have suited a novel at all, I don't think. And even Rhyme, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner in Space, there was a wacky idea that sort of turned out quite well. So a really long way of saying, yes, I'll be writing more novellas, but I'm not sure they'll be part of a series. I think they'd be more likely to be standalone. There are some more questions.
We've got one question for David Watkins. Has got 2 questions up. One of them's about how you came to work with Frank Turner, and his other one: are there any movie tie-in novels set in worlds that you'd love to do but haven't yet?
Right, which is the first one? How? Right. Any movie tie-in set in worlds you'd love to do but haven't yet? Any that I'd absolutely not do? Well, I wouldn't do something that didn't sort of excite me, I don't think, unless the money was ridiculous. And to be honest, with tie-in stuff, it often isn't. I probably wouldn't do Dora the Explorer, the movie, or anything like that. But all the time stuff I've done has excited me, and the novelizations have been fun, and I wouldn't probably sign up for something that I didn't think was going to be fun, because you've got to enjoy yourself as well. There's not really any that I haven't done that I'm itching to do. I did mention Preacher earlier. I'm a big fan of the comics and the TV series, but I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not sure it lends itself to sort of side stories, and I'm not sure that that'll ever happen anyway. It's crossed my mind lately just once or twice to try and do another Alien novel, perhaps. But then I'm also wondering if I've done my Alien thing. I've written a standalone in the trilogy, so probably not. What was Dave's other question? How did I get to know Frank Turner? Was it?
Yeah.
As you see, I'm a massive fan, and he's a really accessible entertainer. So if his email's on his website, and I just started emailing him, and he replies to emails all the time. And Chris Golden and I introduced Chris Golden to his music, and Chris fell in love with his music as well. And we were talking about his one song, Mittens, which has got a fantastic lyric, and we said, that would make a great anthology, and there's no way we could do it. So I emailed Frank, and he said, yeah, I'll. So it talks about him buying a box of postcards, and the box of postcard consists of 10,000 10-word tragedies. So that's how I got to know him, really. There it is. Jim's got the book there and with him. Lovely. So Frank very kindly sent me the box of postcards he bought, and he let us edit this anthology based on his song. And then we had the even crazier idea of doing a launch event in London where Frank would come and play for us. And obviously there was no way it would happen, and it did happen. So we emailed Frank and said, any chance you could play a quick gig for us for nothing to promote the book? Yeah, sure. So that was a banging evening. I got fucked up on tequila with Frank Turner, really quite badly. But, I'll never forget that. It was good. It was really, really good night. He's such a good guy. So he played a 10-song set, and then hung around for 2 hours signing books. And he insisted he'd sign everyone's book. Because so I actually promoted the concert. I was a gig promoter. So the ticket price included a copy of the book and entrance. And there was like 120 people there in this little pub. Banging night. Yeah, he's a good guy. So Tim Love, my mate Tim, he reckons I was right. It's about 45 novels. I sort of lose count because there's one novel I've written that has only been an ebook, and that is the third Secret Journeys of Jack London novel that Chris and I wrote. White Fangs. Dave pops up again. Frank Turner is one of the best gigs I've been to. Mittens is a great song. Yeah, it is. Yeah, he's I've seen him a few times. He's a fantastic entertainer. And we've got a question from Johnny Wright. Collaborations are becoming more popular lately. Would you be interested in writing a collab story? And with whom would you want to work with? I've done lots of collaborations, to be honest. Chris Golden and I have written 8 novels together. So the Hidden Cities books, 4 Hidden Cities books, 3 Secret Journeys of Jack London books. We wrote the script for that for 20th Century Fox, which didn't happen, unfortunately, but we still did it. And we wrote
Blood of Four.
Blood of the Four. Thanks, Jim. God, I was just scraping the inside of my skull. Blood of the Four, a couple of years back. We're writing a novella at the moment called Festival, which we haven't sold yet, but it's almost finished. So yeah, I collaborate with a lot of people. I'm collaborating with a couple of people now, several people actually, on different screen projects. So I'm trying to develop a couple of TV things with various people, some based on books of mine, and one an original idea. And I do love collaborating. It makes writing not a lonely business. I'm sort of okay in my own company, but collaborating, you've got that extra set of eyes looking at your work, and it's just lots of fun. Especially during lockdown, I've been catching up with people I haven't spoken to in ages, and just projects have seeded and taken off. So it's been good. Been good fun.
And Tim, do you write your own screenplays for movies and like TV shows and things like that, or?
So the 2 movies I've had done, I didn't write the screenplay. The Silence, I wasn't officially involved in the script, but I got to see it and comment on it and talk to the director about certain things. I've not had any TV done yet, but the projects I'm developing, I will be, if they get anywhere, I will be writing them. Hopefully, that's it. It's all speculative at the moment. The one thing I mentioned, which is a book of mine that's being developed by TV network, I'm not the writer on. But if something happens with that, I'm hoping I'll write an episode or 2. Yeah. I've written several screenplays, none produced. But a couple of them, I wrote one with Steve Volk, a good mate of mine, and Jim's. So, Steve and I wrote the screenplay a while back, which is still in development, still ticking over. Yeah, I love screenwriting. It's a very different process. And yeah,
that's what I was going to ask, if it's like incredibly different, because there's like it seems to me like in the writing world, writers write their books, but then when it comes to adapting the screenplay, it very rarely, they jump into that arena.
Yeah, they sometimes do, sometimes don't. I think a lot of it depends on partly, first of all, whether the writer wants it. I think as a novelist, my work's quite, as a novelist, you're in charge of your own work, as it were. You're the sole creator. You have editorial input from a publisher, which is great, but it's always your baby. But as a screenwriter, it's a collaborative process. Whether you're writing physically with someone or not, you've got producers to input stuff and script editors and studios or networks. So it's a really, really different process and much more collaborative, and sometimes more frustrating because there's a lot more, you do draft after draft, whereas with novels, you tend to do one major edit with a publisher and that's it usually. But it's just nice to have, but it's all storytelling as well. It's all telling stories just in different formats. So I used to be quite scared about screenwriting because I just thought, oh my God, it's a whole nother world. It's a different language, but it really isn't. It's just a different form of telling stories, which we all love doing anyway.
Right. Well, this has gone on a lot longer than we actually planned on it going on, which is fantastic. Thank you to everyone who showed up. I'm pretty sure I'm connected with the majority of people on Twitter and social media. So once we wrap this up, we'll do a draw to win a copy of Mesmer, a copy of Still Life, and I think this is another super rare one, a copy of The Everlasting.
That's awesome, Jim.
Yeah. And this is number 206 out of 400 copies, signed by Tim as well.
Wow.
And a copy of Eden as well. So
that's right.
This is over now, but at the moment, Ashley is going to post a link up to another YouTube video that I wish everyone who's watched this, pop along and watch it. It's something I prepared for this. Tim, you need to go over and watch this as well. I think you're going to enjoy it.
Right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Tim, huge thank you to Sadie for everything. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks very much for putting this on, and I hope if you try Eden, I hope you enjoy it. And everyone loves reviews, so.
Okay, so go and review, everybody. Read Eden and go and review.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. It's been great. Really enjoyed it.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.